they played my commercial, and like everyone just turned around and looked at me, and I was like, I was kind of like, wow, like that's when it really hit me, like, wow, this is my music that the whole world is listening to. Our car, like, drove straight into the stadium. Like, I was like just taking everything in. I was like, wow, like the shows is when you really feel it.
Yeah.
Like when people are singing your lyrics word for word,
Yeah.
and like sometimes even crying, like you're like, wow, like we did this in the basement.
Yeah.
And then I think he came back a week later, and then we made the first song we released called Nobody Loyal. We released that song and it just blew up. I was in the studio basically every day working on that album. And now that album has like 50 million streams. So basically that wouldn't have, probably wouldn't have happened. All our hard work is going to be paying off, Though obviously because I'm in school, finishing my degree, there's a lot of opportunities I miss. Like sometimes like I get down when I miss those opportunities. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about just like dropping nursing and like
Oh,
and just
yes,
sticking to music full
definitely.
time, right?
Definitely. I mean,
Can't imagine where I'd be if Pascal didn't believe. Couldn't afford to pay my rent, couldn't afford something to eat. But he was always that grind hard. I know that love gon' get you killed, it's why I got no heart. That's why I move the way I do. I can't let you get too close. Ain't from nobody,
yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, no, I really like that one recently.
That's a vibe.
Yeah. Nah, sometimes the simple ones are the ones that just work,
Yeah,
Give the
yeah, just
artist
back to the
space.
basics.
Mm-hmm.
That's dope, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Two for Eyes podcast, aka the #1 podcast in Winnipeg. Honestly, scratch that. We're the voice of Winnipeg. We're here to document everyone and everything and be on top.
This podcast it's been long waiting, and we've tried to get him on. He's a busy man, but we finally got him. Ladies and gentlemen, you probably heard of him, and if you haven't already, it's a man, Pascal Beats.
Let's go.
Oh,
My friend.
thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, man.
Before we start off, I'm not actually on my phone. I'm looking for something. I wanna read you this quote from one of your songs with YSN Fab, and I'm just looking for the timestamp here
Okay.
because
we listened to this, and it was like we try to capture moments that have like more deeper meaning
Yeah.
than what like the public sees.
Mm-hmm.
And so like when I heard this, or he actually showed it to me this morning,
Okay.
he's like, yo, I wanna read this to him before we start. I'm
Okay.
like, okay, let's do it.
I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna say it. We really been through the worst. Everybody trying to take advantage. Pascal wasn't just producing behind the scenes. He would manage. He did it for no cost. It was out of love. I ain't even have a car. He would pick me up. And I lost how many times I wanted to quit, but he's always reminding me how one day we gonna be rich. It got me right back to my paper and pen. Had no family in my corner. Said I'd make it for him.
Yeah.
That's you.
Yeah, I
That
know
is
that
you.
song. Yeah, that's self-titled song,
Yeah.
Pascal.
So talk about it. Talk about.
So the crazy thing about that song was, I remember he just moved into his new place. Like I think we made that in 2020, and he just moved into his new place, and like I was there helping him set up like his new studio and stuff. And then like there was other people there too, right? And I think they heard this song, but I never heard it yet.
Yeah.
So like everyone was just looking at me, and I was kind of confused. But then he just pressed play, and then played the song, and I was like, wow, like, and those lyrics too, like everything he said is accurate. Everything happened. Whether it was me like managing behind the scenes, like when we first started, like
Yeah.
um, organizing things, like paying for the master and the mix, and like he said, driving him everywhere. Like there's like he would move from house to house, like when like we first started this, and there's a time he lived like maybe 30 minutes away from me, and I would drive there, pick him up, bring him to my house, record, drop him back,
Yeah.
come home. Like so we did that almost every day for like that summer. And when I was doing it, like it didn't really feel like a chore. I was like, yo, like I'm excited, like let's
Yeah,
go
yeah.
make music. But I guess he really appreciated that, and and he always shows his appreciation. He's always texting me all the time, like calling me, like, you know, sometimes he gets emotional and like I just tell him like, hey, like,
We're gonna be rich.
it's all out of love. Yeah. Yeah. And like that part was because there was times he wanted to quit, like even like with the success he's had, there's times he's wanted to give up and quit and do his other things and just like sometimes he'll get down, but I'm always trying to remind him like we have an opportunity to do something that no one's done, and you know then you know eventually he comes back. But yeah, no, that song definitely means a lot to me, and everything he said was pretty much what happened.
That's the thing, right? Like it's like when you come from nothing, it's like you have this opportunity, and you know you've seen struggle, you've seen pain, you've seen your family miss meals and not have food on the table, and you have this opportunity where you know you can put some bread on the table for you, not just for yourself, but for your family, for your sisters, for your brothers, right?
Definitely.
And what's that feeling like? Like, take me back. What did that journey start for you, and what got you into music?
Well, I started producing in 2016, so at
Back
the
in our
grade
high school
12.
days. Yeah.
I
So
was
how
in
old are you?
grade
You're
12.
you're a year older than us.
I think I'm a year older than you guys.
You're 1999.
99.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're 2000.
2000.
Okay, yeah. If you guys don't know, we went to the same high school.
Yeah.
Dakota Collegiate represent.
Yeah. And yeah, we could talk about Dakota like we like a lot of people came from Dakota,
course.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I started in my grade 12 year of high school, and it came about because Lavish, you guys know Lavish,
Yeah.
right?
Lavish. Yeah.
So Lavish and my brother, my older brother Santo,
Yeah.
they would record in my house all the time for fun, right?
Yeah.
And making songs, and it came to a point where they told me that, you know, obviously we're in high school, right? So they couldn't buy the beats off YouTube.
Yeah.
And they just asked me, because I was always in their sessions, so they were like, you know, you're here, why don't you just start making beats for us so we don't have to buy them on YouTube?
Yeah.
And before that, I never even like thought about it or fathomed it. I was just always like, you know, doing school stuff. Like I wasn't really thinking about music like that. But I sat on it for a bit, and I don't think I made anything for like a few months because I just didn't think I could do it. Then just one day I was just bored. And then I opened up my laptop and like did research like how to get started, and I got some equipment, and then I started making beats. But the first year my beats were really bad, really bad. Because I remember after I made my first couple beats, I showed Lavish because he was at my house, and like he was saying like these aren't it, like these are trash, like I'll just stick to the ones on YouTube.
I'll just buy them off YouTube. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, but I just kept going at it, and a few years after that, I started kind of figuring it out, and I still wasn't really taking it seriously, just doing it like my free time. And I would only show a few people, like only a few people in the high school knew at the time. But then maybe like a year after that, I ran into an artist called Miazwe.
Yeah.
He's also from Winnipeg,
Of course.
and I think I went to like, I just turned 18, and I went to the club for the first time, and he was there performing, and then I was like, I came up to him after, and I was like, yo, like I make beats, and he gave me his contact, and then I sent him like a lot of the beats I made, and like he was the first artist that really gave me a shot, because he just started texting me the songs back, and it was like my first time hearing someone like rap on my beat. So that experience really like taught me a lot. It taught me how to structure my beats and make sure like there's a hook and a verse and bridge and all the little sections. And so we ended up coming to the studio together and, you know, working on some more music. And then a few months after that, that's when I discovered Fab. And like at that point, you know, everything works out for a reason, and that's something me and him, you know, always say to each other. So me learning with Miazwe, right, taught me a lot of the basics of song structure and how to make a song.
Yeah.
So then by the time I ran into Fab, I already knew that, and then I was able to teach him, and like he came to the studio. Well, it wasn't just like that. I messaged him because I saw him freestyling out of his car on Instagram.
Oh yeah, those videos.
Yeah, I remember those guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like I've never heard anyone like this, like from Winnipeg, right? So I messaged him, and at first he was hesitant. He was like, I've never been to a studio before. I've never like made a song. I just freestyled. And I told him like, I think he's fire, and like I think we can do something. And then he came like a day later. And this first session we had, we mostly just talked and just got to know each other. I think he freestyled maybe like one song, and like it was okay. Like I guess maybe he had some jitters in him. And then I think he came back a week later, and then we made the first song we released called Nobody Loyal. Nobody Loyal, yeah.
Nobody loves
And
my
like
trust.
as soon as I heard that, I was like, yo, like I was like,
that was a good
something
song.
special here.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like we released that song and it just blew up, right?
Good.
And then yeah, ever since then we've been like this, and we've basically been on the same page. And yeah, now we're here.
I mean, that journey is a while, right? That took over the course. I remember when we were in grade, I want to say 11, 10, whatever. We used to hear about Lavish and your brother.
Yeah.
And then I guess you're into that mix as well. And you're like, oh, these guys, like, their songs play at the clubs. And we're like, oh, like they're in our school. Like they're like in Dean Favoni's class. Like, like they're down the hall.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I remember a moment, like, you remember in Dakota that like weight room in the bottom of the basement in that little corner?
That's a legendary.
So I was working out one evening, and then Santo and Lavish are in there recording, and I'm like, everyone's around them in like a huddle, go hyping them up, and I'm like, yo, what is going on? But sorry, I cut in there.
No, but that's to say that all those moments kind of like lead up to where you are now.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to like that initial year of like making beats, because you said that like you didn't really, that wasn't your thing. Like you were just like, oh, like sure, I can make a beat. So like in terms of like the process, like starting right off, like what was it like? Obviously figuring out hi-hats, situations, EQs, all that stuff. Like all that stuff is new, and making a beat is no easy choice.
Yeah, definitely.
Like people think they can make beats, but they probably can't.
So one of the things that discouraged me early on is because I didn't really know how to play instruments. It was I think the only instrument I played was the saxophone in like grade 8 or 7 band or something like that. So like I knew a tiny bit of music theory, but I couldn't just like pick up something and play. So I was always like super hesitant. But then I think I watched a Kanye interview around that time. And like obviously he's like a huge star. He's also a producer too. And then he said like he doesn't know how to play any instruments. So I'm like, how do you produce songs without, you know, I didn't really understand. But then that's when I figured out like he sampled old songs and like put drums and like chop it up and do all these things. So then that really like motivated me. I was like, okay, like maybe I can do this too. So then I started mainly with that at first, and then over time I learned how to play like the piano and how to figure out keys and chords and all those things. But in the beginning, that kind of discouraged me. But then after I saw that quote from Kanye, I was like, okay, let me try it. Let me try this out.
And so what does trying it out mean? Like,
so basically you have to first pick what software you're going to use, right? So I think at first I tried GarageBand.
We love Garage.
And I was like, no, like this isn't going anywhere. Like this is definitely the wrong thing. So then I think I tried Logic X Pro, which is a software on Mac. And I don't think like that Logic is good. I still use it today actually for recording artists mainly. But then I found FL Studio, and that's what really like I was like, okay, like I like this, you know, I could figure this out. So basically finding the software that works for you. I found FL Studio, and then every single day I just watched tutorials, like tutorials, learning from other producers, listening to songs. Like now when I listen to songs, like I listen to it differently, right? I listen to the instruments, the percussion, the layers, and just, you know, I started listening to music like that. Like again, watching a lot of tutorials. Then eventually, you know, after I felt like I learned a little bit, the basics, then I started my own beats. And yeah, they weren't very good at all, but just trials and tribulations, learning new things. Okay, you can't put this clap here. You can't put this kick here. The pitch, the key everything has to be on key. Like that's something I didn't realize until later on. Like everything has to be on key, or the song will sound weird. So yeah, just small things like that. Over time, you start to pick it up, and then yeah, then you know, you just learn and go at your own pace.
Funny enough, when I heard Lavish was making music, I was like,
Okay.
I'm next.
Really? Okay.
And so what we did was we started a garage band. My little motto in grade 12 was like spread love. Still is. I like to spread love in the world and spread positivity. So I was like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna drop an album.
Really?
We're gonna drop an album. It was me, him, and Ritik,
way.
3 friends, just like beginning days of DAC, like in the cafeteria. He's pen tapping and like doing his thing. And then I was like, you know what? We're gonna drop an album. And so I went around and told everyone I'm dropping an album, but had 0 songs prepared.
Oh my.
I was like, December 6th, album's coming. It's like November 4th. And we went around, and then like December 5th rolls around, and like there's no album.
Yeah.
Because we're in high school, and we were just like hyping it up because we were excited.
Yeah.
And then, then eventually I'm like, okay, now we got to do this. And so I found like a bunch of loops on GarageBand and just put them together. I was like, this sounds good. This sounds good. Wrote a couple bars, recorded it on like the iPhone mic, and just put it up on Spotify.
Okay.
And I was like, there you go.
Wow.
It sucks. It's horrible. Like I'm not even gonna lie.
That's how it is in the beginning.
Not even gonna lie. Not even gonna lie. The first probably 6 songs I've ever made. Yep, they're out there. They're in the world. And so that's kind of why I have Logic Pro on my computer. That's the story behind that. But getting back to you,
I was actually gonna play a beat, like you wanted to hear what beat.
Let's do that.
I made recently.
I think that would be to have you kind of break down the beat, kind of talk about why you sampled certain samples or why you put a kick where you put a kick.
Okay, so this is a beat I made.
Yeah, let me
kind of recently.
put it on here.
Yeah, that's good.
So it has a bunch of different layers, so I guess I'll try and break it down.
Yeah, you know Pascal cooking up.
I like that.
Where does the process start with that?
Okay, so with this one, obviously you hear like the voices.
Yeah.
I really love adding those voices because it gives a lot of like emotion to the beat. So right away you already know like, okay. So this is like gonna be like some heartfelt stuff, right? And like those are cues for the artist too, right? And then obviously like you have to have the melodic aspect too. So you add the chords behind it, and then little accents in the back like that just played. And then after you have the melody kind of down, then you have to add the drums. And the drums really dictate what genre this is, right? So if I wanted to make it like pop, I could do like the, you know, like the house drums or whatever, you know, like if I want to make it like trap, I can have like the hard 808s and stuff like that. But like for this, I kind of wanted to have it more like emotional, you know, heartfelt. So usually with that, you have to add a lot of, you have to give the artist a lot of space, right? So like when the verse comes, like it's kind of empty, like right here, right? So it's just the kick right now, and the snare, and then you have to add some variation. So like after about 4 bars, 8 bars, you add something else, right?
Okay.
And then you go from there, yeah. So that's kind of like the breakdown to this. The new sound that just came in is called a hi-hat. and that really carries the momentum of the song.
Okay.
And then I have a snare with like a reverb and delay
Uh-huh.
that adds like more emotion to it. I don't know if
Yeah, I guess
the words I just
get what
said
you're
were
saying.
kind of like
No, I got you. I got you.
but
How do you
but yeah.
decide what feel of song you want to go for? Like, are you like how many beats are you making that like, how many of them are heartfelt and how many of them are trap and pop and?
So honestly, it really depends what artist I'm working with. Um, I like being like versatile, so I could I could make something like emotional, then I can make something like really trappy, or I can make something more pop or Afrobeat even, depending on what the artist wants. So I just like, trying different genres because, sometimes you might get complacent doing the same one and then you lose your skill or your feel and the bounce for those different genres. So I always try and jump around and make sure, I know how to attack every genre because you never know what opportunities you're gonna get, right? Um, so I always try and make sure I, dabble in all the genres I can.
Okay.
It's all good.
So your recording studio is at your house.
Yeah, I have
correct?
a home studio that I do most of my work at. Like sometimes we go to my friend Derek's studio. He has like a
Derek
bigger
Benjamin.
studio. Yeah, that's where we do a lot of like music video stuff, and we usually go there to do like the final mixing and mastering and maybe some revisions to songs, like because he mixes and masters our songs. So like when we're completing an album or a EP or any type of project, we usually go there, listen with like the surround sound stuff he has, and then we can really pick out the details we want to fix and go from there. So, but yeah, I do most of my work at my home studio, and so does Fab. He works in his home studio too.
To take me through the bigger mission behind this music journey that you and your artists have been on, right? Like I think everyone has a deeper message as to why they started music. Sometimes people or artists feel like it's a way for them to express their emotions or what they're going through in life. But what's that mission behind for you? Like why are you in music, and what's your drive?
Well, the thing is, I just love how you could create something that wasn't there before, right? Whether it's the beat and then eventually a song, like those things never existed before, but you kind of just created them out of thin air, basically. And I just always loved that feeling, and it feels even better like when other people also, enjoy the music that you create. So I just love that feeling of, creating something and then showing it to the world, and then, you know, and then they feed off of what you made. Another thing too I like is the shows. The shows is where you really see it because like the numbers you see it, but it's not the same as actually seeing the people that are enjoying your music. And music is it's always been something that's been fun to create and just a way for you to kind of escape from the world, right? And just go to your studio and just you're by yourself, just trying all these new things. And there's nothing better than the feeling when you made like quote unquote hit beat or like, a beat you're really proud of and like you're just playing it like, wow, like I did this, right? So, and then obviously playing it to the artist or whoever and like they also enjoy it. And then, making music from that. And a lot of things too, I guess that people don't realize sometimes, like every song has like a memory or like a message to it. Like we just explained that Pascal song, right?
Yeah.
Has a really long backstory to it.
Yeah.
And then the song we played before this started, right? The Rich Off My Nose, like that one has a story to it. So it's like these songs all capture moments of our lives, and every time we listen to it, we relive those moments and reflect back. So I always enjoy that too.
What was one of the first instances when you felt the power of your music?
I would say probably I felt it a couple times, but I would say the biggest moment when I felt the power of my music was when I produced the commercial for McDonald's.
Oh,
Yeah. And I was like, I remember I was watching the breakup with my uncle at his house, and they played my commercial, and like everyone just turned around and looked at me, and I was like, you know, I was kind of like, wow, like that's when it really hit me, like, wow, I did this, and
I
like
did this, yeah.
I played a role in this, and this is my music that the whole world is listening to. So I think that's when that really hit me.
How did that come about? Like, was that you reaching out to McDonald's to get the song on, or did they reach out to you? Or
Well, yeah, so with that, it was long story short, the Fab's current manager,
Yeah.
Tom, he actually reached out to me with that opportunity last year sometime. I think last year summer. He told me that he went to school with with
CEO?
no. So basically, yeah, he went to school with a friend of his that specializes in commercials,
Yeah.
like whether it's like the music or the instrumentals behind it, or the vocal editing, or the, you know, sound effects that you hear like in the
Yeah.
commercial. Like he has a company that's what they do.
Okay, that's dope.
So they had a contract with McDonald's, and McDonald's was requesting a, you know, hip hop trap type
Yeah.
of beat, and so that was a really big moment for me because I never knew that I could even venture into that.
Yeah.
Because I've always thought, okay, like with making beats, you work with the artist, you release your songs, but it really opens the fact to me that, you know, there's so much more you can do with your music. You can go into TV shows,
Yeah.
right? You can produce for TV shows. You could produce for commercials, like I did. You can even produce and score movies,
Right.
soundtracks. Like there's so many other places you can go with your music, even video games. Like
Yeah.
that's something that I kind of want to see if I can step into.
That'd
as
be
well.
sick, yeah.
But yeah, there's so many things you can do with music, and I really want to, you know, explore those things. And yeah, that opportunity just opened my eyes.
Yeah, talk to me about the feeling of, you know, when that commercial comes on, you're watching the Grey Cup with your family, you know, you're
Yeah.
like your loved ones are around, and all of a sudden the art that you created is on the screen, and your
Yeah.
family looks at you and they're like, "Yo, you did that." And so what's that
Yeah.
feeling like? Like,
Well, it's more so like a feeling of sometimes like I don't realize that like I did anything like
Yeah.
that, and like so when it comes to me, I always like it brings back those memories. I'm like, okay, yes, like I did do this.
Yeah.
And I just think about those sessions because it took me like a week plus to make that beat, and that
Yeah.
beat is probably like 15 seconds or
Oh,
30
wow.
seconds. But I worked on that beat so hard. Like I
Yeah.
remember like I had work in the morning at like 7 a.m. and it was due like they needed that version like that day.
Yeah.
So I think I stayed up to like 4 a.m. working
Wow.
on that, just like working on the smallest details, and then submitted it, and then yeah, I went to bed later. But like I just those memories just come back, and I'm like, wow, like all that hard work was worth it, you know.
Yeah.
So I always smile when I see it, and yeah, definitely a really good memory.
Does it ever get exhausting? Like, for audience that don't know, you're a nursing student, and
Yeah, I
so-
wear many hats.
yeah, you wear many hats, right? You're not even academia. You're a businessman at the end of the point too, right? You gotta
Yeah.
make money with this beats.
Yeah.
So what is that grind like? Talk to me about that. And like,
Yeah, so with my school, I got into nursing school in 2020, kind of before the music really started to take off, right? Because obviously I just graduated high school, I have to figure something out, like right?
Yeah.
So I got into nursing in 2020, but what a lot of people don't know is that I applied in 2019,
yeah,
right? But I didn't get accepted.
yeah,
And you know, so you know, I remember I was really hurt. You know, I wanted to get in.
all right,
They said like I guess my score wasn't high enough or something like that. So boom, I'm out for a whole semester, right?
yeah,
Just at home,
Just at
waiting for the next semester to reapply.
right,
And so, you know, although at that moment I was sad and I was disappointed, that ended up being the best thing that could have happened because that semester that I was off, right? That whole year that I was off, that's when me and Fab made our album,
Yeah.
Made for More. And that whole year, like I was free, right? I wasn't in school, so
Yeah.
we were in the studio basically every day working on that album. And now that album has like 50 million streams.
Oh, wow.
So basically that wouldn't have, probably wouldn't have happened if I got in 2019, and
Yeah.
because I'll be having classes, I won't be able to go to the studio. So that ended up being a blessing in disguise. Um, but yeah, so I ended up getting in 2020, and then yeah, I've been in school ever since, balancing school, music, and then finally just a few weeks ago I finally finished. So
Yeah.
I'm done nursing school now, and the only thing I have left is to write the NCLEX. So I should be writing that sometime next month, and hopefully I can pass, and then I'll be done with this chapter
You'll be done?
of my life. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about just like dropping nursing and like
Oh,
and just
yes,
sticking to music full
definitely.
time, right?
Definitely. I mean, I've never fully considered it, but definitely my artist friends
Yeah.
and you know everyone on the team basically wanted me to drop out and just do music full time.
Yeah.
And occasionally those thoughts would come into my mind, especially when it would get tough in school. But I stuck it through, and obviously I wanted to finish too for not only myself but for my parents. You
Yeah.
know, they're really big. We're really big into education in my family, so I made sure I just endured and I finished. So now, it's like the best of both worlds. I'm still doing music, and graduated.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Talk to me about how that explaining, right? Like, so immigrant parents,
Oh, yeah.
we got like couple options, we like engineer, doctor, lawyer,
Yep.
nurse,
Those
the-
options.
those
yeah.
options. And
Yeah.
so, and that rightfully so, right? They sacrifice their
Oh,
entire
yeah.
lives just so to
They
benefit
can have
us.
opportunity.
Exactly,
definitely.
right? So coming from that and telling them, hey, I want to make beats. And like I'm passionate about beats and this makes me happy and like music makes me happy. I don't know if I'm gonna make money in it or if I'll
Yeah.
ever make money in it, but I want to do this. What is that
Yes.
conversation like?
That was definitely a tough conversation to have with them, and I would make beats here and there at that point, so they didn't really care too much,
Yeah.
and they didn't really start taking it seriously until sometime in 2018. I think it was summer of 2018 when I won the first beat contest.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
2018, there was a beat contest that started in Winnipeg,
Right.
and I saw the flyer somewhere, and at that point, that's when I was really like starting to figure it out,
Yeah.
watching the tutorials. So, I saw it and I said, you know what, like let me see where I'm at.
Right.
And I applied for it, submitted an application, and then they invited me to the contest, and I was like 18 or something.
Yeah.
I was like the youngest one there, and everyone else was like maybe like 30 and way older than me. So I was kind of intimidated. And then I remember, yeah, Lavish came with me, my
Yeah.
brother came, a lot of my cousins came to support me, and boom, round after round would go, and I would like knock off my competition, and went to the final round, and it came to the last beat, and I guess mine was better. So yeah, I won. They gave me like a plaque and like,
Yeah.
a bunch of gifts. So then I remember I came home that night and like I showed my parents, right? I was
Yeah.
like, look what I just won. I won money. I won this plaque.
Yeah.
And then I think that's when they really started to know, like, okay, like I know what I'm doing. Like
Yeah.
there might be something here. And yeah, definitely after that day, they started respecting the music, and obviously still wanted me to go to school and
Right.
finish, but definitely having more respect for what I do.
What was that? What was the competition like? Was it like you were on the spot making beats, or you pre-record and bring it up and
Yeah.
then you just play it?
So I think in that competition they made us submit like 15 beats,
Oh wow.
and there was every round we had to play like I think it was best 2 out of 3 or something like
Mhm.
that. So you would just play your beats and
Play.
hope that they were better than the other guy you were versing, and
Oh wow.
yeah, so it was some
How
rounds.
did they judge that? Like,
So they judged it with the crowd. So the
Oh,
crowd
okay,
would
that makes
judge.
sense.
Yeah. So they would have like a poll where they would pick, okay, like whose beat was better? Was Pascal's beat better, or was this guy's beat better?
Yeah.
And then they would pick whoever they thought, and like whoever won would advance to the next
Yeah.
round. And yeah, I went on like that until the end. So that was a pretty big opportunity and really validated it to me too. Like, okay, like my beats aren't trash.
Mhm.
You know, I just won this competition, so I kind of know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, there's anything we do in life, there's like extreme highs and extreme lows. And
Mhm.
as much as we can talk about the highs of winning the rewards, getting the money, what were the moments where they were low for you? Where, you know, it was, maybe I can't do this anymore. Like, maybe this music stuff is not cut out for me.
I definitely did have some low moments. Probably during like a lot of the opportunities that I missed, I would say. So obviously because I'm in school, finishing my degree, there's a lot of opportunities I missed. Like even recently, um, my Fab went to the UK
Yeah.
for like a week or so, and like obviously I was supposed to go with them, but I couldn't because I had to, you know, to finish my schooling. The shows that I've missed, like we were supposed to go to Atlanta, we were supposed to go to all these places that I couldn't go, right? So sometimes like I get down when I miss those opportunities, but I just remind myself that, you know, I'm setting myself up for success in the future, and um, the sacrifice will be worth it long term. So then that always kind of picks it back up for me.
What made you develop that kind of mindset? You know, it's like very easy to kind of drop everything and pursue something that's very shiny and, you know, it's very rewarding to you right away. But knowing internally that, hey, if I stick this out and like shoot for the long game, it's gonna work out in the end. And so
Yeah.
having that mindset, where did you start developing that?
Yeah, I think just as a kid, like I've always kind of been somewhat conservative and like,
Yeah.
you know, not take being cautious, like
Yeah.
not taking too many risks. Um, Even though something does seem appealing, like you have to weigh the pros and the cons. So yeah, I think just that I've always been like that kind of. So
Yeah.
it kind of helped me because there's been moments I've definitely. I remember I told my mom like I told her one day like I want to drop out. Like
Yeah.
you know I'm missing all these opportunities. I could be going so far, and like you know she talked me out of it. I've definitely had those moments earlier on when I was younger, but I think just being older, you have to think with your brain, you have to be smart, you have to think long term, and that's really helped me make those tough decisions.
Yeah. And what are the moments where you're like, this is all worth it? Like,
Oh man,
Right.
like I said earlier, the shows is when you really feel it.
Yeah.
Like when people are singing your lyrics word for word,
yeah.
and like sometimes even crying, you're like, wow, like this, we did this in a basement,
Yeah.
and people are literally passing out, crying because of something we made, and like it just makes you appreciate it, and like I always just love those moments
Yeah.
because it makes everything worth it. It makes those long hours in the studio worth it, those long studio sessions worth it, everything.
Yeah, and it's like the same thing, right? When you get like, even with this podcast, when we get a little applause from the audience, and
Yeah.
you get that one comment on that video,
Man,
it's
those benchmarks, those
It-
milestones really, really matter. Like
yeah,
they really
100%.
matter.
And so like, what's the continued drive? Like, you know, it's we've had people on the show where, you know, a lot of entrepreneur journeys are because they've gone through some sort of hardship.
Yes.
And, you know, whether that's a financial struggle or mental health battles or whatever that is, what's that drive for you that, you know, has that, like this music has allowed you to kind of overcome and, you know, maybe be financially free where, you know, money isn't really something that you have to think about anymore, or like, you know,
Definitely.
so
Yeah.
what's that thing for you?
So, like we talked about the milestones, and I mean earlier when we first started, it was definitely tough.
Yeah.
Like, um, obviously I wasn't charging anything because I believed so much. I was like, man, like, don't worry, you don't have to pay anything. Like, you can stay here for 8 hours. Like,
Exactly.
don't worry about it. But yeah, no, those early times were definitely tough because you know there was no money coming in. You couldn't really see the fruits of your labor.
Right.
I still remember like getting the first check, and it was like $10 or something or $50.
Yeah.
You know, like for a month.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
But obviously as time goes on and start releasing more and building more, it definitely adds up. And but yeah, I do remember those earlier times where it seemed like it wasn't worth it, but deep down you always knew like, don't worry about like right now. In the future, everything will make sense and everything will be worth it.
Was there ever like a check that you got that you were like, oh man, if you can say the number,
Yeah.
obviously, being the marketing guy, we want to
Yeah.
clip that up. But if you're comfortable saying it, was there ever a number that you're like, yo, that made you like second guess and made you see the power of what producing can be?
Definitely. I won't say the exact number, but I have gotten a check in the 5 figures. So
Yes.
that really kind of showed me like, okay, like this could be something you can do in the future. And sustain yourself.
100%.
One show that sticks out to me, and this was the first kind of glimpse of where I saw like Winnipeg and actually like putting on for the city was the MTS Center that you did with me Hasway.
Oh yeah, I remember
The
that.
Frosh event, because we were in first year of university.
Yeah.
We were 17 years old, so we couldn't go to it.
Okay.
But talk us through that. Like, that's an arena.
Yeah.
That's an arena.
Yeah, I remember that. That was in 2019 with YG,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyga, and this girl from Winnipeg.
Fuzia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her and then Miyazwe.
Yep.
And Miyazwe invited me to go with him, right? Because I produced most of the songs on his album that year.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we went to it. We got all the backstage passes. Like, our car, like, drove straight into the stadium. Like, I was like just taking everything in. I was like, wow, like just looking around.
Yeah.
Like they let us drive straight into the stadium. They showed us our room where we can just sit and relax. I remember we had sound check, and the whole place was empty, right? It was just us, and like I was just looking around, like, wow, I think I took like a video. I was like, I'm really in a stadium right now. And then eventually as the day went on, it was time for the show to start. People just started lining up and filling up the stands, and I was just looking like, wow, like the whole time just mesmerized. And then Miyazaki eventually comes up, and I don't remember how many songs he played, maybe like 5 or 6, but I think I produced almost all of them, like maybe like 4 of them or so. And I was just looking at the reaction to like my song, and like they were definitely going pretty crazy. He actually has a clip of this song called I Need It. It's more of a slower song, but like he's doing like the hand moves, and everybody was following him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely a crazy moment for me, and showed me how far your music can go.
What was that feeling like, driving into the stadium? Not a lot of people get to do that.
I know, man. I was like, am I really here right now? Like, yeah, it was pretty crazy, like, because obviously the security, like, if you're just going there, like, they're not gonna let you in, right? But show them the badge, like,
Yo, we run this shit.
They're like, okay, like, these guys can come in. But yeah, it was just like I was just taking everything in and just being, appreciating the moment, just like, wow, like we got here just off music, right? And just show me the possibilities and the doors it could open.
Does it make you want to go like even harder?
Oh yeah, for sure. It makes me want to go harder because I know it can just open more opportunities, right? And like you'll reap the fruits of your labor. We were actually supposed to do a couple more shows, and this is what really sucks because like when me and Fab were first really working, we kind of blew up during COVID, right? In like 2020, 2021. So that really sucked because we couldn't do those shows. And that show with Miyaza, I believe, was in 2019. So now, like, me and Fab are blowing up and buzzing, and we get invited to a show in Vancouver, a festival in Vancouver with Future and Lil Uzi Vert, right? So, like, as soon as we heard about that, we were going crazy. Like, wow, like, we're gonna be on stage with Future and Lil Uzi. Like, it's gonna be a huge venue. Like, all our hard work is gonna be paying off. We were super excited, but then COVID canceled it, right? and then we're like, fuck. And that was pretty much what happened for the rest of the year because obviously COVID at that time, we couldn't have any shows. We were supposed to do a show with Gucci Mane. He was supposed to come to MTS Center.
Right. Yeah.
Couldn't do that. We were supposed to do a show with Lil TJ that year. Couldn't do that. So it really did mess up a lot of our opportunities and to perform in the beginning. But thankfully this year things started to, go back to normal last year things started to go back to normal and we did a show in Vancouver, this time with Lil Baby, I'm forgetting a lot of their names, Coil Ray, Corday, Pressa, and like maybe one
Those
or
are
two
not
other people.
those are not small names, man.
Yeah, we ran a festival with them, and so yeah, that was a pretty cool moment because again, like you get to see everyone love your music and jam out and have a good time.
What's the interaction behind the scenes with, like, for example, man, you're in a festival with Lil Baby. Like,
Yeah.
do you get to interact with them, or do they have their own kind of like secluded area where no one can go in?
Yeah. So basically, what happened with that? Everyone was backstage. You could pretty much do whatever.
Yeah.
Go to this person's place and like just chill. But when he came towards the end. You couldn't go anywhere close to him. Yeah, like the security everywhere.
Yeah.
But the thing that actually happened, he came to the show. I saw him come out of his car, and like he just had his hoodie over his head, like, and apparently he was in his trailer just puking, like, super sick.
Yeah.
So he actually had to cancel his set. Like he was ready to perform, but then he just started puking and throwing up, and like he just said he couldn't do it. So it was really unfortunate because like everybody was waiting for him.
Yeah.
And he was literally there, but he just couldn't because he was sick. But yeah, like his security was everywhere, covering anything. We also had an experience with NLE Choppa.
Yep.
We went on tour with him in the fall last year. We went to Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg. And so yeah, we went on tour with him, and with him it was a little different. Like he only came with like 3 or 4 people. He came with his mom, his dad, his DJ, and his friend. So it was just 4 people. So backstage it was super chill. Obviously he had a security guard, but like they didn't really care. Like we sat together. I actually got a picture with him. We talked. He gave us some advice. He said he liked what we were doing, that we should keep it up, and so yeah, I definitely really liked going on tour with him. He was super open and chill, and yeah, we're actually gonna see him again in November. We have a show in November lined up.
Nice.
Yeah, so but yeah, I really like him.
Is there anyone in the industry that, like after you guys had like amazing success, that reached out and then you were amazed or like started?
Oh yeah, a couple people have reached out.
And what are those messages like? Are they just in words of encouragement or advice?
Like Drake just being like a hand praying emoji, right?
Yeah. So an artist, Russ, has reached out before. In 2020, Russ reached out, and so it was cool to get acknowledged from him.
Of course.
He even like commented on there.
I saw it. Yeah.
So yeah, that was really cool. There's also another guy. His name is escaping me. Freddie Wap. Yeah, Freddie Wap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Freddie Wap.
He's reached out.
Like the
one eye.
The one I get. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's reached out. Tay Keith, the producer, has reached out before. And had a combo with Fab. And there's probably some people I'm not remembering.
Sure. But it's probably a great feeling to know that you're on the right track and you're like greats of the space are acknowledging our work.
Definitely, because the music that they were replying to was the music we made in our basement. So it's like, wow, like these people actually, notice the talent and appreciate the work. So yeah, that was definitely really validating, and yeah, it was crazy when those messages happened.
Is there ever opportunity in the future for you to work with big names?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Like that's why I said like as soon as I'm done with my nursing, hopefully I'll have more time and be able to really branch out into the industry. I did have an opportunity in 2020 to work with Lil Durk,
Oh wow.
and I sent some beats to him, and he went into the studio. So I never heard it. Obviously, the songs didn't come out.
Yeah.
But I'm led to believe like he used some of those beats because they told me to send like the stems and stuff like that. So that was the opportunity that I wish the song came out so I can just listen to that. But yeah, I've definitely sent him some beats. I've tried to work with also Rod Wave,
Yeah.
and a couple other artists. So yeah, but definitely when I get done, I'll definitely try and branch out and like go to the States and like try and work with those artists.
So my question is, how does the producing game work? Like obviously you work with Fab and
Yeah.
is like he your artist? Like how does that work?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, me and him basically came up together, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's more, we have more than a producer-artist relationship
of
for
course.
like this, right?
Your
So,
brothers.
so yeah, me and him are always gonna be good. But as far as like other artists, it's really who you know, and it kind of sucks because obviously everyone wants to work with all these big artists and their favorite artists, but it's pretty hard to reach them if you don't have any type of connection or know somebody that knows them or have any type of loophole. So it's kind of difficult, and especially being in Winnipeg, obviously I'm not gonna know anybody that knows whoever, like the people
Yeah, of course.
popping in the States, right? It's gonna be hard to have those connections, but they can be made, and sometimes you just need to travel and get out there. So that's something I definitely would like to do in the future.
There's that saying that you're only, what, 7 people away from the people that you want to get in touch with. Is that true?
I think that's true. I think that's true. I mean, I was 2 people away from McDonald's. So I think that's true. I definitely think that's true.
I mean, so again, like going back to how it work, so if an artist reaches out, or will you send them like a pack of beats and just be like, these are the ones that I have? And then would you, like most of the times if they're not in Winnipeg, you're obviously not in the studio session with them.
Yeah.
And so how do you find out in terms of music and in terms of putting it out, release date? Do you get a lot of say? Because you probably, like, for example, that like the beat you showed us, it's really melodic, it's like more heartfelt. But if a rapper or somebody goes on it and just the vibe of theirs is completely off, how do you portray the vibe that you're trying to say on it?
Well, honestly, if the song is good regardless, like even if I wanted it to be maybe more softer and they make it more upbeat, if the song is good, that's all that matters. And with artists that I know, it's really easy to communicate and be like, oh, okay, you want to drop it in 2 months? Okay, yeah, that's fine. Like, I'll send you the stems, we can work it out. But when you're sending it to an artist you don't know and you can't communicate with them, you kind of have no say. So it's like you just basically just hope that they pick your beat, you hope that they use it, that they release it, and then you hope that they reach back out to you to like sign the paperwork and all that stuff. So it's kind of tough working with artists that you have no connection with or don't know.
Okay.
What is the business side to this music industry? I mean, something's got to pay the bills at the end of the day, right?
No,
So
for real.
how does even deal structures work in the music industry?
Yeah, well, with the producer side, when you have a song with the artist, you usually negotiate. There's two ways you get paid, right? There's publishing, and then there's the mechanical royalties. And I'm not an expert, like a lawyer, and to break it down, but basically, the producer's usually entitled to about 3% of a song that they produce, usually with a bigger label. Like if it's a local artist, you can negotiate whatever, but if it's with an artist that's signed to a label, you usually get 3% of the song. And then on the publishing side, and before I get into that, the mechanical royalties is basically like if you play a song on Spotify or Apple Music, that song is going to generate money. It's really small money, but over time it adds up. But then you get 3% of that.
And that's for lifetime of the song?
Basically, yeah, for your life, yeah. And they pay out like every 3 or 4 months. You get a check of all the music listened to in that period. So yeah, so that's how that works on the mechanical side. And there's a publishing side where you get paid when your song's on the radio, or like if your song has been performed or, you know, played at an event or anything like that. You get paid off that, and the producer's entitled to 50% of that.
Oh wow.
So that's usually where producers get their money, right?
Nice.
Stuff like that. So those are the two sides, and sometimes the negotiations do get a little sticky, especially when the producers that co-produced it, like one wants one wants more, another one wants like, and then you kind of fight, and sometimes it delays the song coming out. So that does happen. Thankfully I've never really ran into that, but that does happen.
What about the whole conversation of going the idea of a record label versus being independent? Is that the same for producers as well?
Well, no, the producers don't usually do that. The producers usually sign something called the publishing deal, where, let's say, a company will reach out to me and say, okay, we'll give you, let's just say, 100,000, right? And for you to get that 100,000, we're gonna get money off your publishing.
Gotcha.
So basically, they give you $100,000 loan, and then they get your publishing. Remember the 50%? They get those the money that comes from that until your 100K is paid off, and then they get and some, right? So you could decide, like, if you need the money right away, okay, you can take that. But if you're okay, you can say, you know what, I'm good. Like, I'll just get money, you know, from live off my own thing. So that's usually on the producer side. On the artist side, they can either they have really three routes. They could sign to a record label, they could sign to a distribution company, or they can go independent. And so we've kind of had some experience with all three. So obviously starting out, we were independent, and releasing music when you want, do whatever you want. Basically, you have the reins, right? You know, all the money goes to you. You're good. It has some pros and it has some cons, right? Some pros is obviously flexibility. You get to make your own decisions, do what you want. You get all the money. But then some cons are you won't have the push, you won't have the support, the direction, marketing, all that, right? That the distribution or the label can give you. So next would be the distribution, and that they're kind of like in the middle. So a distribution company will come up to you and say, okay, we'll give you $50,000 for you to release an album, right? So with the $50,000, they'll basically fund the marketing, they'll fund all the things I mentioned, right? And then they only have the rights to that album for, let's say, 5 years, like 5, 7 years sometimes. So then they get all the money until that 50K is recouped and then some, right? But at least they help out with the marketing and stuff like that. Then there goes the label. The label usually offers way more, right? Probably like 500,000 or $1 million, depending on how big you are. But the thing is with them, instead of them owning the music for like 5 to 7 years, they own it for life.
A 360 deal.
Basically, unless you have like a lot of leverage and you can negotiate. But usually they own it for perpetuity. They still provide those same things like marketing, merch. Like they basically they run you like a machine, right? So, but the thing is that is good in some aspects, right? Because like they're gonna set you up for success. But at the same time, you're losing basically your rights, and that's why people say they're slaves to their label, because all the money you generate, especially if you sign a 360 deal, will go to the label, like merch, everything, for perpetuity. Like even things that you seek out yourself, like let's say you get an endorsement deal from Nike, the label is still gonna get paid from that, even though they had nothing to do with it. So there's definitely pros and cons, and you just have to figure out what works best for you.
We had Marcella J on the podcast who was working with Lavish. I believe she's still working with Lavish. This was before the recent EP drop, and she mentioned that the music industry is ruthless.
Oh yes, and 100%.
Have you experienced something like that, or any stories that you can share in terms of how that may be true?
I mean, I haven't necessarily experienced that fully. We did experience a record label deal, kind of. It never fully went through, it was just talks. Earlier on when we started, Atlantic reached out and we were talking to an A&R from Atlantic Records, and like it was kind of the same thing. Like he was talking about the 360 perpetuity, and even back then, like we were still super new and young, but we knew that's not something we wanted. So we ended up not going through with it. But yeah, definitely that was probably the only experience I've had. But I've definitely heard a lot of horror stories, especially from producers too, that will place a song and they won't get paid for it for years, right? And they're trying to hit up the label, no one's answering them. Like, so there's definitely horror stories, but it doesn't happen all the time, but it definitely does happen a lot.
And then it probably sours the rest, right?
Yeah.
One bad apple just sours the rest. So.
It ruins your motivation because like, even if I get the song with this artist, I'm not gonna get paid from it. They're gonna take months and years, and so yeah, that definitely happens.
What's the end vision with this? Like, do you want to have your own label one day, or do you want to, you know?
End vision would probably be to be at a point where like, you know, everything's taken care of, you know, like you could just sit back, you can admire all the work you put in. You could also motivate others to, you know, accomplish their dreams as well. Obviously family taken care of, and then having the option whether you want to work or you don't want to work. And I think that would be the, you know, the end goal eventually.
And I think some of those you have already done in terms of motivating. You know, especially when music comes out, a lot of artists get a lot of credit, but you have to remember the producer is a vital part in the songmaking process and the whole overall feel of a song. Like there's songs that I'll listen to and that will just bring you back to a moment in time, and that's props to you, right? Props to your craft and the work that you put in. So in terms of motivating and inspiring, like I'll say you've inspired, and especially myself included, right?
Well,
especially seeing you from Dakota, like you know, like so
even like for example, when I graduated, you guys put out that album with YSN Fab. Right? One of the songs was Cash. Right.
Cash,
and so every day to work, I kid you not, man, for 3 months, I don't want cash. I don't want, you know.
That's
so
crazy.
so it was, it's great to see that, like, you know, people that you literally went to high school with and you're like friends with,
like
that would just go out there and do something that's like,
no, that's good to hear, man, because that's what we want, right? We want people to enjoy the music, have pride in the city that they're from, that like the city created this, and
exactly,
you know, so I'm happy to hear that.
Do you want to talk about the Winnipeg music scene as well? I know there's a lot of pros and there's also a lot of cons to the scene as well in terms of competition and stuff like that. Like what do you think about the current stage of the Winnipeg music?
So currently the Winnipeg music scene is, honestly, I would say, in a pretty good place compared to when I started, and when like my brother and Lavish were making music. Completely different place, like between now and then, because back then it was super hard to get support, and even back then, like when I started producing, I was the only one I knew that produced. So like I didn't have anyone to reach out to, anyone to ask questions, ask for direction or anything like that. So it was really tough. You know, you felt like you were on your own. You didn't really have support. So compared to now, you know, there's a lot of that. There's so many producers I can't even keep count. There's so many artists I can't even keep count. And I feel like the city as a whole just respect the artists more and, you know, actually, you know, support them. Because back then it was really hard. You know, they would think that you're just doing it for fun, that you're not serious, and, you know, maybe like throw jokes here and there. But now it's definitely a bit more serious and people respect what we do.
Did those jokes hurt at the time?
No?
They're just people talking?
Just people talking.
Okay.
Yeah, just people talking.
How do you deal with that hate though? Like, you know, like there's even with this like nursing thing, right? Like people are probably like, yo, why are you going into nursing? Like you're a producer, right? Or like even stuff like that. Like how do you, especially with music, it's your baby. You gave life to this beat. And when people are saying, oh, that's trash, or you should have done this.
Yeah.
What is that?
Surprisingly, with at least with me, I haven't really experienced
You're
much
just that
hate.
good. You're just that
I
good.
mean, yeah, I guess so. But like,
It comes out like numbers talk.
Yeah.
It's like check the stats, yo.
yeah, exactly.
No, that's a real thing, right?
I haven't really experienced much hate because I try and keep good relationships.
Yeah.
Try not to rustle any feathers. But I even like in school and stuff. I guess that wasn't. I wouldn't consider that hate. I would
No.
consider that more like like
Envy, that's what it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would consider that more of like like come on like drop out so you could
Yeah.
Yeah.
so you can work
Mm-mm.
work toward that goal and stuff like that. But I haven't really experienced much hate. I have seen it though, definitely like to the artists because they're more in the limelight, and
Yeah.
that's kind of why I like producing because I kind of like being low key and like just
Yeah.
being in the background, with my headphones on. Like I am orchestrating things, but at the same time, like it's the artist that's getting the vision, right? So they usually deal with the hate more than me. And sometimes I see it get to them a bit, but sometimes they use that as motivation to go even harder.
I mean, now that you've established yourself as a very well-renowned and like awards, plaques, and everything, do you have producers that reach out to you?
Oh yeah.
And then what do you tell them? What do you tell them?
All the time. So I usually just try and give them some advice, and if I can hear that they have some talent, I'll sometimes even go to the studio with them and just make beats with them and teach them some things. Um, but yeah, a lot of people have definitely been reaching out, and obviously you can't please everybody. Like you don't have, there's not enough time in a day, right? So the people that I could see potential in, I try and help out, and, give them some advice.
Is there, anything that we haven't touched on today that once you walk away from here, you're gonna be like, oh, I wish those guys asked me that question.
Let's see. Nothing comes to mind right now.
I mean, again, like we've been trying to orchestrate this for a while, and I hope it did some sort of justice. Just because we'd seen the work that you guys have put in, not only for yourselves and the success, but also a big thing for the city as well, right? Which is kind of the reason why we started our Tool for Eyes was for the city, because just like you said, there was no producers before you. We didn't know there was anybody who was doing what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the goal. And seeing someone in a completely different industry do that's kind of why we wanted you on. And I hope.
I think with our generation, I think we are definitely, breaking, boundaries and showing that, yes, you're in Winnipeg, but it doesn't stop you from doing anything you want to do, right?
Exactly.
Like people probably wouldn't have thought, oh yeah, you can be a successful artist, or you can be a successful producer or a successful podcaster or anything. So I'm seeing a lot, and I'm sure there's people that did it before us, so I don't want to take any credit from them.
Of course not.
But at least from what we've seen, right? I feel like we're breaking a lot of those boundaries and motivating people to, chase their dreams and their goals.
Do you ever feel that pressure though? Like sometimes we feel that pressure of you're laying down the road for future generations to follow, and even for myself, I'm a big family guy. So for me, my cousins are looking up to me, and they're like, and that puts a pressure on me. It's like, if Arsh doesn't try, then I can't do it. And it's like, so I'm setting the path to show them that, hey, if I chase my dreams, maybe one day something will come of it. So do you ever have that pressure?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, obviously with family, you want to be a good example and a good role model. And yeah, like you said, there's definitely a lot of eyes on us, right? There's people that want to do what we're doing, so we always have to lead by example and show, like you said, that they can do it too.
Yeah.
And don't set limits for yourself.
Any advice that you can give to our audience? We always like to end off with advice questions. So any advice to even that young producer that's in the basement grinding out beats or
I definitely have advice for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I would say just make sure that no matter how your beats sound like right now, they're gonna get better. I thought my beats were horrible at one point, and sometimes I still think they are. But yeah, just keep going. Don't give up. Work on your craft every day. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. I guess that's something I didn't really mention. when I started producing, I don't think like I got $1 for like the first 2 or 3 years. I didn't get money from it, right? But I kept doing it, and I was doing it out of love. Like I opened my laptop every day to do it. So make sure you're in it for the right reasons, and then everything else will come from there.
All right. On that note, if you haven't already, make sure to check out Pascal. We'll tag everything in the description. Give his music some love. It's killer beats, it's killer music. And until next time, hit that like, subscribe, and peace.
We're made for more.
Good. Thank you guys, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, bro.